What's going on, guys? Welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about Cleanspark, and it does look like the miners for the most part are bouncing here while Bitcoin's pulling back a little bit. We're going to look at Bitcoin on the chart and Cleanspark on the chart. I also have an article I want to show you going over analyst projections, and I think they have it very wrong. But let's get started on this video. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend. You'll notice Bitcoin has pulled back a little bit over the weekend, but it's nice to see the miners having a little recovery day. They were definitely due for it. Now, if you guys like these videos, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. It definitely helps me out a lot. Consider joining my membership for $2 a month to show your support. And let's start with Bitcoin. So looking at Bitcoin, it looks like we found resistance on our ascending trend. We were maintaining this line as a support. Once we broke it, we kind of found it as resistance, and now we're back at an important level. I do think if we break 40,000, we're very likely to come down to the 38s. And on a break of 40,000, 38,000s will be the next level of support to watch out for. But I do think if Bitcoin's going to fall, it needs to fall very soon. We have the halving coming. It's running out of time to drop, in my opinion. And any of these drops will be buying opportunities when you look back. Now, I have a lot of people talking about the halving and how we're going to have this substantial drop and then we're going to rally because of last halving. But you have to realize last halving we had that huge health scare. We had the entire market that just dropped like a rock and then quickly recovered after when the Fed injected it with liquidity, when we had a bunch of stimulus, when we had people at home bored putting money into anything. But Bitcoin in the last halving did experience a 50% drop, and I don't expect that this time. Now I want to bring you back to the 2016 halving. In that halving we didn't see as substantial of a drop in March, but we did see a pullback from January to February of about 20%. And while I think this halving is going to play out more like the 2016 halving, just because of what happened with 2020 that was just an unforeseen variable, it's always possible the market tries to mimic the 2020 halving, and it may become a self-fulfilling prophecy because people are anticipating a 50% drop somewhere before the halving right around March. Maybe the market sells off at that point and it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. People are expecting it, so people plan for it, and it plays out like 2020 again. But personally, I'm leaning more towards the 2016 halving because the 2020 halving was quite a bit skewed. But like I said, we'll have to see how it plays out. I personally don't anticipate a 50% drop, however. But I think the big takeaway is even if we do drop, it's a great buying opportunity because of what happens in the halving year and the year that comes after. After that little pullback in January and February of 2016, Bitcoin went on to continue rallying, going absolutely crazy. You didn't want to miss out on this. It ran up all the way to about $20,000. And while yes, in the last halving, the 2020 halving, we did drop 50-something%, that turned out to be a buying opportunity and nothing else. Bitcoin went on to run all the way to the 60,000s. So I think the big point here is don't worry about a 20 to 30% pullback. I'd see that as nothing less than a buying opportunity because mark my words, we will be much higher in price by the end of 2024 and subsequently in 2025, which is where the real fun begins. So I say don't worry about a pullback, look forward to one. You should be wanting to buy Bitcoin for even cheaper. It lets you buy more Bitcoin than you could otherwise. Now, I also want to talk about Cleanspark, and I think the analysts have it drastically wrong. And I'll leave this article down below for you if you want to look over the rest of it, but I mainly wanted to bring you to this chart here. This has analyst forecasts for Cleanspark's revenue, for their earnings, for their free cash flow, and their cash from operations. And it shows that Cleanspark won't be profitable until sometime in 2026. And it also shows that their revenue is going to grow drastically towards the tune of $450 million by 2026. However, looking at earnings from here, they expect it to drop, while they expect revenue to grow, free cash flow to grow, and cash from operations to grow. I personally think we're going to see profitable quarters much sooner than 2026, and I do think there's still the possibility we see a profitable quarter in our upcoming earnings or our next earnings, which is going to go over January, February, and March. And so far, Bitcoin's been at least over 40,000 throughout January, and they're already setting up to see a better quarter for revenue than the September, October, November quarter, which is about to be reported in early February. But I think in this chart here, the analysts aren't really pricing in Bitcoin's dramatic growth throughout 2024 and 2025. And it's really hard to predict where a company like Cleanspark will be even a year, 2 years from now because of Bitcoin's huge fluctuation in price, because of variables like rewards getting cut, hash rate growth, competition. There's so many variables here. It's really hard to predict where something like Cleanspark will go. But one thing I am confident in is Cleanspark is going to remain among the top miners. They're among the best in all-in cost to mine Bitcoin. They're among the best in hash rate growth. They have the best uptime in the industry, meaning utilizing every single machine they can. They repair their machines on site, which means less time for shipping, less time to wait to get hashing. And they also have a very aggressive growth strategy. Getting to 16 exahash in early 2024, and with the goal of 50 exahash in the future. And of course, there's trade-offs. We're going to have share offerings. We're going to have some dilution. But looking at this as a company and not just a price on your phone, you'll notice that Cleanspark is taking all the necessary steps in an effort to become the top miner. And of course, short term, that can hurt shareholders. Who wants to see dilution? Let's face it, no one really wants to see dilution. But with an unprofitable company, if you want them to grow, if you want them to succeed, how else are they going to acquire money? Taking out extremely high interest rate debt, which could mean even more dilution in the future to pay off that debt. And that's a whole nother thing to think about, is we're going to see rate cuts very soon. This is going to help a lot of these small cap companies that are unprofitable, that have to acquire debt at an extremely high rate. So we do have a lot of tailwinds for Cleanspark, the halving coming. And while yes, that means rewards being cut, but that also means Bitcoin going up drastically in price. We also have Cleanspark's revenue growth to look forward to. We have Fed rate cuts, which will help small cap companies acquire debt for less interest. Now I want to pull up Cleanspark on the chart, and like I was saying, it looks like we're having a little recovery day for the Bitcoin miners while Bitcoin is pulling back. I think part of that reason is these miners were just becoming pretty oversold, and for the ones that weren't yet oversold, we're definitely more towards oversold than overbought. Had a pretty dramatic pullback, 40% for some, and we were definitely due for a little bounce day at the very least. Now, one thing I want to see for Cleanspark is for us to close at the daily high. That would be a positive signal that we can hopefully keep recovering. Otherwise, if we close weak, we may see some more pullbacks. We may see a test again of the 650s. This is a pretty important level of support. It was a previous resistance. So I do think 650 will be an important level to maintain and watch. And if we break down from there, our psychological 6 is going to be the next level. But you know, Cleanspark's expecting a nearly $66 million quarter. I personally think we'll beat that. When they gave this estimate, Bitcoin was rising dramatically in price shortly after. And I do expect they'll be somewhere more towards 70 million in revenue. And they'll give us a projection for even more, maybe 80 million, 90 million in the next quarter, going over January, February, and March before the halving. And then after that, yes, rewards will get cut. Their revenue will likely come down. And then more towards 2024, they'll be back to getting those record quarters for revenue. But you can see that from the end of 2022 till now, we've had some nice revenue growth. And I want to ask you, where do you think this company's going? Last halving, Cleanspark was pulling $3 to $8 million per quarter. Now we're talking about double-digit revenue each quarter, soon triple-digit revenue, and soon after, profitability. But there is definitely a lot to be excited for. Any pullbacks now will be seen in the future as great opportunities to have added. And we're getting closer and closer to the halving. Only 86 days away now. I feel like the last time I looked at this, we were at like 100 days. Time is going to fly by. The halving is literally right around the corner. And despite the recent pessimism in Bitcoin, now is the time to be excited for Bitcoin. Now is the time to be really wanting to buy. Catch that FOMO. Don't catch that FOMO when we're extremely overbought. Don't catch that FOMO on those crazy 10% up days. When it seems like everyone's selling, everyone's losing attention, that's the best time to be focusing and to be buying. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think Cleanspark's still pulling back from here? Or do you think this is the time to recover? We've already pulled about 30-something%. I do think our next leg up is approaching. But thanks as always for watching, guys. Where do you think Cleanspark and Bitcoin are going for the short term? And where do you think they're going to end up in the end of 2025? Hopefully you had a good weekend, and here's to a better week than last. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll catch you next time.